Hi guys, Rhonda Draculas here, RK3 Designs, and I am very excited to show y'all a video today on a finish that is so popular. It's a very simple process. It mimics a natural stone, or strié, I guess you would say, is the technique that we're going to use. I'm going to begin today with my sample board, which is a 12 by 16 sample board, MDF, 1/2 inch. I've used the router to round over the edges, top and bottom, so that my epoxy really flows and gives me nice coverage. I've painted and primed, or primed and painted I should say, with Behr paint and primer in one. I love Behr. I've used a color called Chocolate Froth. It's a really cool color. It's very neutral because the base tint that I'm using is going to be the buttercream, and I want something that's going to be not high contrast. So when I get to my edges, I don't have, you can't really see, you know, where the epoxy is thin, and you don't really see those edges. I've already mixed up some epoxy, and I mixed up 4 ounces of the countertop epoxy from Stone Coat Countertops, and I mixed for 2 minutes, and then after that I added the Stone Coat Countertop base coat in buttercream. I love this color. I love it. It's kind of a creamy off-white kind of a color. It's not really a hard yellowing. It's really good for a neutral background. So I'm going to apply this. And I'm going to leave just a little bit in my mixing cup because I may use it a little bit later. Now at this point, I'll take my trowel and I'm going to mix it up just a little bit. And I'm using a 1/8 by 1/8 square notch trowel. And that's going to just really help me to make sure the depth of my epoxy is even across the board. So after I've spread it out, then I'll address the edges, let those run over the edges. And I really want to make sure my edges are covered. Now, if this were a really large countertop, because the trowel will leave little lines in it where I've troweled it out, you'll want to take a brush and you'll want to chop all those lines out. Now, because it's a very small sample board and I like using my hands, I'm going to just chop with my fingers. So I'm just going to kind of take those out. What that'll help also is bring those air bubbles to the top. Address my edges. Now, if the surface is clean, I'll pick up epoxy that's dripped over, bring it in on my edges. Now, if I had done a pour prior to this sample board, I wouldn't be picking up the epoxy that's fallen down because it would be contaminated with some other colors. So I'm just getting all those trowel lines out. I'm really making sure my epoxy is over all the board. Epoxy is self-leveling, so it will level out. If you have a thick spot here and a thin spot here, and you know you've done your best to try to get it even, don't worry about it. It is going to self-level. So I've done that. Like I said, if it were a big project, I would take my chopping brush. So take my torch, and I just want to torch out any bubbles that I produce from the mixing. And at this point you can go and see if you have any little foreign objects that you don't want in there. Okay, I think we're good to go. Okay, so I've torched it, and I try to do it, torch it, come back, and do it like 3 times. That really helps to get those bubbles up. All right, so the goal for the piece today is I want a very neutral, natural looking stone. So I'm going to be bringing in some neutral browns, but I am going to add a little bit of a gray just to kind of update it. You know, if maybe the client had a little bit of gray in their house, or you just wanted to kind of have some kind of pop of color. So I'm gonna bring in a gray. But I'm gonna start off, I like to start off with my darker colors so I can kind of outline where I want my effects to be. So I'm gonna start off first of all with Rust-Oleum Leather Gray, and it's a gloss paint. Make sure you really shake it up good because you'll get kind of a funny little residue if you don't. All right, so I'm just gonna take it and check it out, make sure everything's going good. I'll spray it on the table, but I'm gonna add a little bit of paint to my stick. And because I'm gonna do a technique where everything's in lines, I wanna keep all my pattern in a line, like a striated pattern, I guess. So I'm just gonna kind of very lightly just kind of bring in some colors. And I want this to be very simple. So I'm not gonna put a lot of color. I can always add a little more color. I do like to take my edges and kind of put some color there. And you'll see here in just a little bit, we're gonna do some tilting and heating, and it'll cause those colors to kind of run. I'm not really worried right now about patterns and how everything's gonna look. I'm just trying to lay down some color. So now I'm coming in with nutmeg. It's a little bit light over brown. And I'm just gonna kind of bring that into it. And I'm just, it really helps if you study natural stone and just kind of see how their patterns go. Now I haven't added any more color to my stick. I'm just kind of taking what I have and playing with it a little bit. The color that's already on my stick, I'm letting it just kind of play, the two colors kind of play together. So I think I'm gonna bring in, maybe, let's bring in maybe a lighter color. This is gonna be a gloss khaki. Now this is kind of a yellowy color. And I'm just gonna kind of play with it a little bit. And I'm only gonna put it a few spots. I'm really not gonna get crazy with that color. I really like that color. It really works well with the buttercream. A lot of this, guys, I'll just grab colors that I've never really mixed together, and I end up liking what I see. All right, so I had said something about bringing in maybe an accent color, and I'm gonna bring in stone gray. I really like this gray. It's a neutral gray. It's just really a really pretty gray. Now, because I don't know how it's gonna react right off the bat, I'm gonna come down in this corner a little bit and make sure I like it before I go right off in the middle. And I do. It's just gonna add just a hint of a different color. And oh, I really like that. It's kind of just blending in and almost just giving a kind of a highlight. I'm gonna put it a little heavier up here. Okay. All right, I really do like that color. All right, now I'm gonna bring in some white also. Let me grab it, I forgot to get it. Okay, so I like to add white to just about any striae I do, and not a lot. White is a color that can really overpower very quickly. So I just wanna use a little bit of it, strategically placed, because like I said, it's a color that can really grab your attention fast and take it away from what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so I really like the color combinations of this. I like those a lot. That's very simple, very recreatable. So now I want to get some movement, and I want to really make it look real. So I'm going to take my heat gun. You can also do this with a torch if you want. Heat gun's a little easier to use, a little more user friendly. But all I'm going to do is heat up my epoxy so I can get some movement. So I want to make these lines look not so man-made. I want to bring them in and kind of go across the grain, and you can really take these lines and make them look like a really natural piece of stone. Another way that you can do this to get a natural look, if you don't have a heat gun, is you can just do a tilt on it. So if I tilt this, you can really see how I'm getting some movement and getting this piece to look a little more natural, because you're not really going to have hard lines in natural stone. You're going to have movement. You're going to have those lines really curve and do some fun stuff. All right, so I'm really liking how that edge, how that piece is really going over the edge. I really like that. I think I'm going to add a little bit of color kind of on the bottom. Now, what you'll notice, if you do a lot of tilting, when you tilt or heat with a heat gun, you take the hardness to a softness. So if you have a really hard line and you heat it with a heat gun or you move it, it's going to soften out that line. So if you have some really hard lines that you like, you may not want to do a whole lot of that tilting. I really don't want to have a lot of soft lines in this technique. I really do want to have some hard lines. So I'm not going to do a whole lot of tilting. I think you know what I'm going to do actually? I'm going to hit it with a little bit of alcohol. I'm using the brown metallic mica powder mixed with 91% alcohol, and I'm going to just add it, and it's in a very, very, very fine mist bottle. And I think I'm going to come in here and just add a little bit of interest, because what this alcohol will do will cause the paint to kind of get a fracture. Now, because I'm using a very fine mist, it's not going to be a big game changer as far as changing the pattern. So it's just kind of given a little bit of a sheen to it. So if you walk by, it kind of grabs your attention a little bit. I'm going to bring in espresso. It's a really dark, dark brown. I'm going to add a little bit of that. Now, I'm not even cleaning off my stick. I'm just going in with the colors that I had on my stick. And I think I'm going to just, ooh, that is dark. All right, so I'm just going to bring a little bit in here. Maybe just kind of get me some depth going. I use both my torch and my heat gun when I work. So I just wanted a little bit of that express on the edge. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up some of this epoxy and add to it. Now when you add epoxy, it's going to take those colors and it's going to separate them. So if you add epoxy back to your piece, it gives some really neat effects because it causes those colors to open up, I guess you would say. So I added a little bit here. I really like how that's causing those colors to kind of move a little bit. I'm going to use my heat gun. Oh yeah, I like that. Kind of gives it a real natural stone look. Okay, that is cool. Now the alcohol will cause sometimes some surface tension. So all you have to do is kind of come in here and touch it, and that'll cause that epoxy to kind of close back over those little circles. Now I really like this look right here. That looks like a real piece of stone right there. I like how this epoxy's causing, when I put a little bit of that epoxy back over the top of it, it caused those lines that I had created with the spray paint to really kind of open up a little bit. Okay, I am really, really liking that. I think I want to do, let's see, this is my problem, is I never know when to stop. I always want to keep playing. I think I'm going to bring a little bit of the darkness in here, just a hair, just a hair. And kind of cause these to kind of open up a little bit more. And this heat gun, you can really play and get some neat effects without burning your epoxy. It's hard to get this movement with a torch because you could really burn your epoxy. Okay, I am really liking this. Okay, that is really cool. And you can just barely catch a glimpse of the brown metallic that I sprayed. All right, guys, this looks like a real piece of stone. It really does. You could show your customer this, and this would be something that would be so recreatable on a big surface. Make sure when you do your sample boards, if you are doing them for customers, that what you show them is recreatable, because I could create a gorgeous piece right here and show it to them and never be able to recreate that look. So I am very happy with this. This looks like something that I could buy. I think I'm gonna walk away before I mess it up. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a thumbs up. And also subscribe to our channel. We'll be doing updates weekly. And hit the little bell so that you can get notification when we do an update. I appreciate you all, and have a great day.